German pilots laughed at this fat plane until its 8 guns opened fire. Imagine you are a Luftwaffe fighter pilot in 1943. You are an ace. A predator. Your name is synonymous with fear in the skies over Europe. You fly the Focke-Wulf 190, the butcher bird. A razor in the sky. A perfectly balanced killing machine. Fast, agile, lethal. You are the master of your domain. One day, on patrol over occupied France, you see something new. Something strange. You look to your side and see this. The P-47 Thunderbolt. The Americans call it the Jug. It doesn't fly. It seems to float, with effort. It's fat. It's clumsy. It's colossal. Nearly double the weight of your agile machine. It looks like a tractor with wings. A smile crosses your face. You laugh on your radio to your wingman. Look at the American beer keg. In a dogfight, a duel of agility and grace. That thing is a flying coffin. It's a target. An insult. You die for the attack. A quick pass, a burst of 20mm cannon, and another victory for the fatherland. You get on its tail. Certain of victory. It doesn't even try to turn. It just flies straight, like a stupid bovine. You line up the shot. Until 8 50 caliber machine guns turn the sky into an inferno of lead. It's not an attack. It's an eruption. A wall of fire tracers that saws the air. You don't see bullets. You see a cone of absolute destruction. The sky in front of you disintegrates. The sound is a thunderclap that tears at your ears. You yank the stick in panic, your Focke-Wulf shaking violently. That tractor almost cut you in half. This is the story of the plane everyone laughed at. The ugly duckling. The flying pig. Take Lunker. This is the story of how it became one of the most feared, resilient, and deadly weapons of the Second World War. If this image has already hooked you, if you want to know how this tractor dominated Hitler's aces, subscribe and hit the bell. The real story is even more unbelievable. To understand the Jug, you must understand the hell it was born from. The year is 1942. The American 8th Air Force arrives in England with a plan, a bold, almost arrogant plan, to bomb Germany into submission. In broad daylight, their weapons, the B-17, the Flying Fortress, an engineering marvel, armed with 13 heavy machine guns. They believed that by flying in tight combat box formations, they could defend themselves. They were wrong. Tragically wrong. Imagine you're not the German A's. Imagine you're a 19-year-old gunner inside a B-17A, 1,000 meters above Germany. The temperature outside is 50 degrees below zero. The air is so thin you can barely breathe, even with the mask. Your leather jacket is frozen stiff. The sweat on your brow freezes instantly. The sky is a deep, almost purple blue. And then hell begins. First, the flak. Bursts of anti-aircraft artillery. Black, oily clouds that appear from nowhere. The plane rocks violently. The sound of metal being pierced is like hail on a tin roof. You pray a shred of shrapnel doesn't hit the bombs beneath your feet. And then the voice on the intercom. The voice that chills your blood. Bandits. 10 o'clock. Coming from above. You see the contrails. Like chalk scratches in the sky. They come in swarms. Messerschmitts, 109 segundos Focke-Wulfs, 190s. The Luftwaffe's little friends. They don't attack like gentlemen. They dive straight through your formation. Cannons and rockets blazing planets explode. Men are thrown into the frozen void. Parachutes open, or they don't. You fire back. Your .50 caliber gun trembles in your hands. But they are too fast. They know where to shoot. At the engines, at the fuel tanks, at the cockpit. Where is our escort? Where are our little friends? The English Spitfires, the American P-39SA. They are agile, beautiful, but they are short-lived watchdogs. Their fuel tanks are small. They have to turn back for England long before you reach the target. You see their wings dip in a farewell that feels like a death sentence. From that point on, you are alone. In the heart of enemy territory, the losses are catastrophic. 5%. 10%. On missions like Schweinfurt and Regensburg, the 8th Air Force lost 60 bombers. In one day, 600 men, dead or captured. The Air Force calculated the odds of a crewman surviving 25 missions. The answer was almost zero. The daylight bombing campaign was failing. Morale was broken. America needed a miracle. They didn't need a dueling plane. They didn't need an agile interceptor. They needed a bodyguard, a gaudy angel who could go to Berlin and back. A plane that could fight for 8 hours. A plane that could absorb the punishment of the Luftwaffe and keep flying. The problem is, that plane didn't exist. It had to be invented. The order went to Republic Aviation. And to one man, a genius, an immigrant from Georgia. Not the American Georgia, the Soviet Georgia. Alexander Kartveli. Kartveli was not a dreamer. He was a pragmatic engineer. He understood brute physics. To get range, you need fuel, lots of fuel. To carry lots of fuel, you need a powerful engine. Very powerful. He didn't design a plane. He started with an engine, but not just any engine. The heart of the beast, the Pratt & Whitney R-28 Wasp. An 8-cylinder, air-cooled monster, the most powerful piston engine ever built. 2,000 horsepower, but a powerful engine is nothing at altitude. The air is too thin. The engine suffocates. It needed a supercharger, a device that forces air into the engine. And Kartveli didn't use an ordinary supercharger. He used a turbo supercharger, a complex turbine, driven by the engine's own exhaust gases. Now, where to put this thing? It was enormous. And it generated infernal heat. Placing it near the engine, up front, was impossible. Kartveli had a crazy, almost absurd idea. He put the engine in the front, and the turbo in the tail, more than 6 meters away. To connect the two, he created a labyrinth of metal tubes and ducts, massive pipes that ran underneath the pilot's cockpit. One carried cold air from the front intake to the turbo in the tail. The other carried the scorching, compressed air back to the engine. The pilot, in essence, was sitting on top of a high-pressure industrial plumbing system. The result of this engine-first philosophy was a monster, a plane built around its own breathing system. It was enormous because it had to be. All that internal space wasn't empty. It was engine. It was ducts. It was fuel tanks. The P-47 could carry over 1,100 liters of fuel internally, 3 times more than a Spitfire. And then, Kartveli looked at his creation, and he knew it would be a target. So, he armored it. Steel plates around the cockpit, bulletproof glass, self-sealing fuel tanks. And the engine, the R-280, was air-cooled. There was no liquid cooling system, no vulnerable radiators. A Messerschmitt 109, with its elegant Daimler-Benz engine, was a marvel of German engineering, but a single machine gun bullet in its glycol system, and the engine would overheat and seize in 3 minutes. The pilot was doomed. The R-280 was a brute. It could have entire cylinders blown off by cannon fire. And it kept running. It kept pulling the pilot home. The final result weighed 8 tons. 8 tons of brute force American engineering. Double the weight of a Spitfire. Double the weight of a Messerschmitt. In 1942, the first P-47s arrived in England. The pilots gathered on the tarmac. They were young men, used to the grace of the Spitfire. They looked at the Thunderbolt, and they laughed. The reaction wasn't confidence. It was contempt. What is that? It's a tractor. They call it the Jug, because it looks like a milk jug. No, it's a juggernaut. A steamroller. You don't get in it. You put it on. They hated it. It was heavy. Its climb rate was pathetic. A Spitfire could race to the heavens. The P-47 climbed, eventually. In the first combat, it was a disaster. The pilots tried to fight with it. They tried to turn. They tried to dogfight against the agile 109s and 190s. They died. The Jug was a death trap. An 8-ton coffin. Morale plummeted. The generals in Washington wanted to cancel the program. It was a billion-dollar failure. A colossal mistake. The joke of Europe, until a group of pilots, led by men like Hubert Hub-Zemek, decided to stop fighting against the plane and start fighting with it. They discovered the secret that would change the air war. The P-47's weakness was its weight. But what happens when 8 tons of metal are pointed straight down? Gravity takes over. The golden rule was born. If you get in trouble, dive. Picture the scene. A P-47 pilot is trapped. 2 Focke-Wulfs on his tail. They are faster in acceleration. They turn better. The American pilot is boxed in. His CO yells. On the radio. Push the stick. Dive. Now, the pilot obeys. He shoves the stick forward. The Jug's nose points at the earth. The 2 German pilots laugh. They follow him. It's an easy kill. The P-47 starts to fall and accelerate. 100 miles per hour. 200. 300. The German pilots keep up. 400 miles per hour. The air begins to scream. The P-47 isn't just falling. It's being pulled by gravity like a ship's anchor. 500 miles per hour. The German pilots look at their speedometers. Panic. Their lightweight planes are shaking. The wings of the Focke-Wulf are vibrating. They are approaching the compressibility wall. The air can no longer get out of the way of the wings. Their controls freeze. If they continue, their wings will be ripped off. They have to pull up. With all their strength, they pull out of the dive. Their bodies crushed by G-forces. They look down. The P-47 is gone. It is still diving. 600 miles per hour. 700. It breaks the sound barrier, not in level flight, but in a terminal dive. It becomes the first piston engine plane to do so. It survives. Its overbuilt frame, designed to support a tractor engine, absorbs the punishment. Far below, thousands of meters down, the American pilot slowly pulls back on the stick. He is alone. He escaped. The weight, the fat, was his greatest weapon. His armor, his salvation. What do you think defines a great warplane? Agility and grace, like the Spitfire, or brute force and the ability to survive at all costs? Leave your theory in the comments. The answer from the B-17 pilots would change history. The Luftwaffe learned the new rule. Do not follow a Jug in a dive. Ever. But escaping was only half the equation. The Thunderbolt wasn't built to run. It was built to kill. Cardvelli didn't just give it armor. He gave it a hammer. Thor's hammer. 8 Browning M2 machine guns. 50 caliber for in each wing. This wasn't standard. This was excessive. This was American firepower. A Spitfire had a mix of cannons and light machine guns. A 109 had a central cannon and 2 machine guns. They were precise. Surgical. The P-47 was a buzzsaw. It fired a cloud of lead. 68 bullets per second. Explosive. Incendiary. Armor-piercing rounds. The mechanics adjusted the convergence. The 8 guns didn't fire straight. They were aimed to converge at a single point. A point 300 meters in front of the plane. Now, go back to that Luftwaffe pilot, the arrogant ace. He sees the Jug in his sights. He doesn't see the 8 guns. They're hidden in the wings. He closes in for the kill, and the American pilot squeezes the trigger. It's not a rat-tat-tat. It's a roar. A sound pilot's described as tearing a giant sheet of canvas. The entire plane shudders. The sky in front of the Thunderbolt turns into a meat grinder. The Focke-Wulf 190 isn't hit by a bullet. It's hit by a wall. The 50 caliber rounds don't make holes. They rip off chunks. The Wynefte 190 is literally sawn off. The engine disintegrates. The cockpit is pulverized. In less than 2 seconds, the pride of the Luftwaffe ceases to exist. It becomes a cloud of metal confetti. The B-17 pilots, who once feared the sky, now had a new god. They kayet it, little friend. But it wasn't little. It was the big fucking brother. The bodyguard who could win a bar fight. The air war over Germany changed. The P-47s flew ahead. They went in for a fighter sweep. They dived on German airfields and caught the Luftwaffe aces before they could even take off. The German pilots, who once hunted, were now the hunt. They feared the jug. They feared the sound of that radial engine. They feared the sight of that fat silhouette in the sun, because it meant hell was coming. The P-47 cleared the skies. It opened the way for the bombers. It broke the back of the Luftwaffe. Men like Francis, Gabby Gabriski, Robert S. Johnson. They became aces, not in an agile plane, but in a flying tractor. They proved Kartvelli's philosophy was right. Survival was the best weapon. The story could end there, but it didn't. The P-47 had accomplished its mission. The Luftwaffe was broken. New fighters, like the P-51 Mustang, with its even greater range, were taking over the primary escort role. The P-47, the hero, was becoming obsolete. Was it retired? No. It was unleashed. It was let off the leash. If it was a good fighter at altitude, it was a god at low altitude. The war changed, from the sky to the ground. D-Day, the invasion of Europe. The army needed air support. And the Jag answered. Its armor made it nearly immune to light flak. Its air-cod engine could take hits and keep going. And its firepower, the engineers added more. They put rockets under the wings. They put bombs on it. The P-47, the 8-ton fighter, now carried the same bomb load as a light bomber. IT was reborn as the Juggernaut, the steamroller, a nightmare that flew 10 meters off the ground. Imagine now you're a German soldier in a Panzer tank, hiding in a forest in Normandy. You hear a sound, a low hum, that becomes a roar. It's not the whistle of a Spitfire. It comes straight for you, ignoring the machine guns on the ground. The pilot can see your face. First, the rockets. They rip your companion tank from the ground. Then, the bombs. The earth trembles. And if you survive that, come the 8 machine guns. They don't just puncture your armor. They turn your tank into a sieve. They destroy locomotives. They explode ammo dumps. They hunt convoys on the roads. The P-47 destroyed more ground targets than any other plane in history. It destroyed thousands of tanks, thousands of vehicles, thousands of trains. It paralyzed German logistics. The plane everyone laughed at became the most versatile weapon of the war. The Jack Dash of Dash all dash trades. The tractor that plowed the battlefield. The legend of the P-47 isn't in the numbers of aerial victories. It's in the stories of survival. Pilots returning to base with planes that looked like scrap. Holes you could put an arm through. Wings with chunks missing. Half the engine's cylinders destroyed. One pilot returned with an entire telephone pole stuck in his wing. And he landed. And he survived. The Spitfire was a work of art. The Messerschmitt was a razor. The P-51 was a racehorse. The P-47 Thunderbolt was a hammer. It was an iron block. It was a promise. Alexander Kartvelli's promise to his pilots, no matter what happens, no matter how ugly it is, no matter how heavy. This plane will bring you home. It was never the prettiest. It was never the most agile. But when the haunted Frozen B-17 pilots looked out their windows in the middle of Germany. The most beautiful sight in the world was that fat, stubborn jug flying off their wing. The bodyguard, the juggernaut, the legend. Engineering history is full of legends like this. Machines that defied logic and changed the world. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. Your journey into the forgotten stories of technology has only just begun. And watch this video about the secret weapon the Nazis built too late.